Hey guys, this is Jonathan over at American Off-Road Customs again. I want to talk about this JK behind me that we are wrapping up. This one kind of went down a rabbit hole. He had long arms on this, although they were radius arms, and he had 37s on here. He's got big brakes, so pretty well already kind of set up with a lot of aftermarket stuff. But his concern was that it just did not handle well. He was complaining about a lot of body roll, and he just didn't feel comfortable driving this thing on the highway. Kept feeling like it was going to be out of control and stuff like that. So he asked us to look at it, and we found a few problems. So we're going to take a quick look at some of his old stuff over here. So this being broken in the rear was really not adding a whole lot of support in the rear axle. And his shocks were also very blown out. Like, I should not be able to just push this down super easy like this. So they're not doing a whole lot. So that's definitely contributing to a lot of his body roll concern. And so we started looking into some options for repairing this, or some replacement components from the manufacturer. The problem is those parts are pretty old and outdated. Can't source replacement parts. We could easily build a new link for this and make it, and it could have been fine, but it kind of, I think, gave him an excuse to go with some upgrades. So that's kind of what we did. So in this case, we ended up converting his coil springs to coilovers. So upgrading those 2.0 shocks to a 2.5 shock body with coilovers to replace the coil springs. Gives it a lot more tunability, and overall can ride a lot better than what he had before. We also went with MetalCloak's 4-link system. So he still gets his long arms that he had, so he has good geometry for all of his big tire stuff that he's doing. But this is going to be a lot more stable than the radius arm setup that he had before. Also, he had radius arm front and back, so that didn't help with his stability concerns. We also took out the factory sway bars, put in some AntiRocks front and back. So those working together will allow the Jeep to flex a lot. He'll get really good off-road performance, but when he is on the street, it should handle really well and be able to give him that comfort and stability that he's looking for. So what we did here is we put in the AccuTune King 2.5 package. So these have reservoirs that are tucked up in here. These are adjustable, so you can turn these dials up here to be able to increase or decrease the dampening on the shock, depending on your current, whether you're driving on the highway or going off-road, going fast, going slow, all those different things. So he's got a lot of adjustability there. We also went with their bump stops that are hydraulic. So these will add like another level of slowing down the up travel. If you hit a bump really hard and you start maxing out the springs here, this will absorb the last 2 inches of travel. So that way that doesn't get transferred into the rest of the vehicle, into your back, and into the other components in the vehicle. So this will help soften that load up a bit. So to give you an idea, with a coilover system, you have a true dual rate spring system. So you have a softer spring up top, which is designed for like the first inch or so of suspension travel, and that's designed to absorb small bumps in the road, little bumps off-road, things like that. But then you hit like a big pothole, big speed bump, or big rock off-road, things like that. You're gonna hit this secondary adjuster up here. That's gonna transfer the weight from the softer spring to the stiffer spring, which will give it some more support, keep the vehicle planted, and allow it to absorb that bigger bump a lot better. Now you hit a really big bump, or take this, get some air on this thing, and it comes down and wants to really compress, that's where this guy comes in. And it's gonna be a way stiffer spring to be able to absorb that last bit of travel. So to give you an idea, this is like a 250 spring, this is like a 350 spring. This is equivalent to like a 700-pound spring. So when it hits that, it's gonna really slow down that force and help absorb that energy. Keeps the wheels from bouncing off the ground in those situations. You see like trophy trucks jumping through the air and they come down and they just stay planted and keep going. This is how they're doing that. They're being able to absorb that impact and keep things traveling. Now things like limit straps in here and bump stops, those things take the force away from the expensive coilover. So if you're gonna break anything, You break that stuff and you save this expensive coilover body. So that's why we do all that stuff. So if we want to come around the front, we'll talk about some of the stuff we did up here. So similar to the back, we converted the front to a 4-link system, so got rid of the radius arm. So again, more stable, and it's gonna handle a lot better for him driving down the road. One of the other concerns he had was his PSC system he had. Now he was complaining about how it just never worked well for him and has kept having problems. So we kind of re-engineered that a little bit and replaced his track bar bracket with a bigger upgraded track bar bracket, converted his steering to high steer to make more clearance so that this thing can sit really where it needs to be, nice and parallel with the tie rod, and give it all the energy that it needs to be able to move around without running into clearance issues with the other steering components. So this should work a lot better for him going forward. And again, we got the same setup up front. So we got 2.5 coilover bodies, bump stops, we got the adjustable reservoirs right here, AntiRock sway bars, got rid of the factory sway bar disconnect that comes on the Rubicon models. Not that it was anything wrong with it, but this is just a better overall setup for what he's got. So this should ride a lot better compared to what he had before. And to top it all off, we went from his 37s to some brand new 40s, Beadlock wheels and tires. Not to mention, I think they look really good. It's gonna go really well. We put the Apex rapid deflate valves in here so this thing can air down really quick for him. So overall, this should ride really, really well. Can't wait to get it finished up so we can put it on the road and see how it does.